Chairperson, are you able to say it?
Yeah. Is it only two items?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
only two main items, yeah.
No, thanks, Mr. Matons, and good morning to honorable members, all stakeholders present to our meeting. The IEC Deputy Commissioner Love, Commissioner Meyepsa, Commissioner Masuku, the IEC CEO and Deputy CEO and the entire team, and all other stakeholders, the DG and the team of Home Affairs and the legal team, and also the Parliamentary Legal Service in attendance. Good morning and you're welcome. We are continuing with our work in line with what we have received in the last committee meeting. You will note that we did receive a comprehensive response or comment on the public hearing from IEC and also Home Affairs. And Home Affairs responded for the second time as a result of some of the issues which were referred by Parliamentary Legal Services that they must come and comment on. And the Parliamentary Legal Service took, in the last meeting, agreed to formulate responses or comments on what the IEC and in particular Home Affairs has responded on the issues that they've requested them to respond. We're going to get a response from the Parliamentary Legal Service just for noting they've not formulated a final responses because Mr. Njigela is not well, is off sick. So we'll receive just a brief on some of the issues that are on consideration by the legal service. We'll then able to deal with those issues in our, the committee will also direct, but in our next meeting, when Mr. Njigela has finally recovered. We'll also receive issues that were requested the content advisor, that he must have worked on them, that are highlighted on the response from IEC and the DHA, so that we'll fill up in our deliberation as we're going to engage in this process in our session. So the content advisor will highlight some of the issues that may need to be deliberated on. And I know that he has difficulties with his network issues to communicate with members of parliament, and he has sent them some of the issues this morning. We'll deliberate on that point so that we acquaint ourselves with the issues that are raised. We'll also, members of the committee, know that the process, as we have now received responses from all the three stakeholders, Parliamentary Legal Service, IEC, and the DHA, the committee may consider to deliberate on the motion of the desirability to proceed with the deliberations, and will then, once there's a decision, request the Mr. Matonsi to bring the motion of desirability in our next meeting for adoption, so that we allow the process for deliberation. And it will assist because we'll then have to receive a final responses from Parliamentary Legal Service. At that time, we're going to adopt the service. The other point which I think we need to consider, which it was firmly raised outside this electoral amendment bill, the DG, is the continuous issue that we were informed that the Home Affairs lines or systems were down yesterday. It appears in terms of the issues that are coming, is either the whole day or there was a chaos in terms of the working systems of Home Affairs. We may need to get a bite from you, DG, as we conclude this item. It's important to at all times when issues which are impacting our service delivery and the committee is alerted, we may need to take a brief in terms of this because it complicates or it compromises the work that has been of the Home Affairs, and it frustrate our people on the ground. I would like you, DG, to give a bite on that as we close the meeting. So in essence, that will work on those areas and have a guidance from the committee on how we're going to proceed. And the MOD will only adopt it in our next meeting. The committee must impress as to whether we proceed so that we give the team to prepare the MOD for our next meeting. I'm fully aware that there's a plenary at 10 or mini plenary debate at 10, and members may need, perhaps some of them may need to attend to the plenary. So our focus are going to be guided by these issues that we have presented. Mr. Matonsi, can I invite you to render apologies if there are apologies?
Yes, Chairperson, the apology is that from Ms. van der Merwe. She said she might join because she's traveling to somewhere, but she might join or she might not join. That's the only apology. And that of Mr. Zipiwe indicated he's not feeling well. That's all, Chairperson.
Okay, thank you. Noted apology of Honorable Lizel and Mr. Njikela. We have noted the issue. Mr. Matonsi?
Yes, Chairperson.
I hear you are coming back again.
No.
It was me. It was Honorable Roos.
Oh, Honorable Roos. No, sorry. Honorable Roos?
Chair, I just wanted to indicate that Honorable Kanyile is trying to log in. So she's having troubles logging in. So she's not absent. She's just attempting at this point in time.
Okay, noted. Load shedding challenges were noted. If she logged in, then we'll. In apologies, I think apologies were done. Yes. Mr. Matonsi, can you assist on the item number 3? We're going to invite Mr. Adams and the Parliamentary Legal Service, and we'll then deal with item number 3.
Thank you, Chairperson. If I may start. Good morning, honourable members and colleagues. Yes, just to share this document, it was just a highlight of some of the issues that I was taking down. I initially imagined that the deliberations today would continue from the deliberations or the presentations made by the DHA and the IEC on Friday. But the chairperson asked me just to extract some of the issues to help guide the deliberations, and these are just some of my own observations. So the first issue here, just highlighted 11 issues, and these are not exhaustive, but merely just a way of starting the debate. The first question there really is, why is the requirement for the determination of the number of signatures required or the deposit needed for independence left to the IEC to formulate in regulations when it is an issue that seems to be of policy concern? Could the formula for the determination of the signature requirements or deposits not be included in the bill? Secondly, a proposed amendment to Chapter 5 of the Electoral Act is needed to allow for independents to have agents during elections. So an idea of how this inclusion in the bill would look. So a draft proposal from either IEC or the DHA on what including agents for independents would look like if we were to include it in the bill. Given that we don't have much time, the committee needs to see how it would be formulated so that we can indicate whether the committee wants to include this or not. Thirdly, but when can the changes needed to the Electoral Commission Act to allow for independents to be represented in liaison committees be tabled? Will this be done in time for the next general elections? So the indication was that there are consequential amendments needed for for the bill in order to allow for independents to stand on liaison committees, which are currently only formulated for the inclusion of political parties. So a draft proposal on how this would look and by when it could be implemented is needed. Fourth, if we're going with the DHA proposal of replacing vacant independent candidates' seats with the candidate that received the next highest number of votes, will it not be argued that this gives political parties the benefit of replacing their seats with chosen candidates next on their list, whereas the independents and their support base could now be replaced by a political party or an independent with a completely different ideology? So the question really just emerging out of that one proposal from the DHA. Fifth, given that replacing independent candidates with candidates that they have no influence on in the above proposal and without by-elections, could it not be argued that this is unfair in court? And what objection do the IEC or the DHA have to the private members' electoral bill proposal to have votes transferable to persons specified by the independent prior to the election? Again, this is just one of the issues that are raised by many of the submissions. The IEC should also then draft a proposal for the inclusion in the bill of the 3-ballot system that they mentioned for the National Assembly compensatory seats, National Assembly regional seats, and provincial legislative seats, both with either with the requirement of being ordinarily resident in the region or for all candidates, so that's political parties and independent candidates, or a removal of this requirement for all candidates. So these are the two proposals that we also perhaps need to see in writing so that we can formulate a decision on this. 7, how would it be responded to in court to the objection that the major disadvantage of independents having their surplus votes discarded effectively means they have no choice but to run as parties, which then means the bill does not truly fairly address the Constitutional Court ruling for the inclusion of independents? Again, something that was raised in quite a few submissions and was only indirectly responded to. And 8, on which calculations or historical numbers is it stated that having by-elections for replacing independents would be costly and lead to constant by-elections? What are the numbers from local government, and what percentage of candidates in any given year did die or retire from office? So we have an actual idea how much it would cost to have by-elections versus the proposal of replacing candidates with the next on the list or with transferable votes. The other options. 9, the objection raised by some submissions to the forming of political parties to allow them to have a list, which would then give them access to more seats or replacing their candidates should they vacate their seats, is that this would compromise their stance on being independent. Hence the call for voluntary associations or prescribing running mates or transferable votes prior to elections. The DHA indicated that Section 18 of the Constitution does not require such voluntary associations, but neither does it require political parties. Only in Section 19 of the Constitution is it indicated that that anybody be allowed to form a political party, but also that independent citizens or anybody can stand for public office. So just raising an issue around that. Then 10, it is argued that requiring independent candidates to need signatures of support does, but not for political parties, is an unfair disadvantage, particularly given that independents have less financial or organizational support compared to established parties. And that this is to prevent chance takers and high numbers of independent candidates. The one proposal for this was then that would it not be more fair to improve accountability, making the requirement for signatures for all candidates, including political party candidates. Again, something that emerged from the submissions. And can an example be shown using previous election results how the IEC proposal would work to restore proportionality by determining the national quota by dividing the total valid party votes by 400 plus 1 minus independent seats allocated? The result plus one disregarding fractions is the national proportional quota. So this is the alternative proposal to the current calculation in 3 rounds, using the group system in 2 of the rounds and not the first. So a simplified proposal. But the IEC indicating that this would be a more proportional system, but until we see it in practice, like a formulation is maybe saying, like, given at a provincial level, there were so many votes in Gauteng in the last elections, and this is how it resulted, using the former calculation system, and now using this calculation system, this is how it would be more proportional and more fair. So it would be good to see that in writing, so that we can formulate a more informed decision on this inclusion, for this amendment bill. These are just the main issues that I extracted, and then obviously I'm sure the members will have their own that arose out of the debates from last week. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Salmon, for taking some of the issues that will inform, also contribute to the discourse of our interaction. Let's now invite Daksha to give a brief, then members will comment, then we'll go to the item of MOD. Daksha?
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, members and colleagues. As the Chairperson has mentioned, Mr. Chikela has taken ill, and so we have not really prepared a PowerPoint, and I do apologize for that. But what my colleague, Ms. Hallie, and I have done is that we had looked at the responses that the Department of Home Affairs gave on Friday, and what we just want to very briefly give our viewpoint on that. Obviously, pending Mr. Chikala's return to this committee, where he might want to take it a little bit further. As you will recall, in our presentation that we made on the 6th of May, there were basically 4 issues that we wanted the department to come back on. And this is what they then did on Friday. We looked at those responses. The first issue was whether our understanding was correct that the bill does not prevent independent candidates from associating and forming parties and therefore being able to contest for the compensatory seats. We note that the Department of Home Affairs confirms that that is indeed the situation, that the bill does not prevent them from associating and forming parties as defined in the Act to actually contest the elections for Our understanding in that the Department of Home Affairs said that due to Section 15A of the Electoral Commission Act being repealed, no one could have contested the last local government elections in terms of that provision. However, our reading of the Electoral Commission Act is that the Amendment Act of 2021, which repealed Section 15A of the Electoral Commission Act, also inserted a new Section 15, subsection 7 into the Electoral Commission Act, which provided that any party that was registered for a particular local municipality on the date on which the Electoral Laws Amendment Act of 2021 came into operation must be deemed to be registered in respect of that district municipality. And we assume that that was then the provision under which these associations contested the local government elections as associations. Then on the issue of filling the vacancies when a seat of an independent candidate becomes vacant, we know that the department agrees that the bill should indeed address the filling of the vacancy, and that the manner in which this vacancy should be filled is a policy decision. Options on how to do this have been presented by both the department and the IEC, and this will then be for the committee to deliberate on and see how best the vacancies can then be fulfilled. On the issue of party liaison committees, we note that the department has agreed, and we agree with the department, that the bulk of the amendments regarding the functioning of these party liaison committees would indeed need to be made in the regulations. However, the term in the Act, party liaison committee, would have to, however, be amended so that it doesn't only indicate a party liaison committee, but it would also then be inclusive of independent candidates. And the Department of Home Affairs has already said that some of those regulations have been amended to apply to independent candidates. With regard to having agents for independent candidates, it is noted that the department is in agreement that allowing political parties to have agents, but not independent candidates, is a differentiation that would be without any justification. They have also then proposed alternative approaches in the event that having too many agents at a voting station might complicate the management for the elections. And these proposals, again, are for the committee to consider during its deliberation. We did, however, disagree with one of the responses made by the Department of Home Affairs, and this was on the residency issue. As you will recall, there were many submissions raised by the public on the requirement that an independent candidate who wants to contest an election for either a region or the province must be ordinarily resident in the region. A further provision in the bill also requires that independent candidate to submit a signed declaration confirming that his or her residential address is situated within the region or the province in which he or she intends contesting. Various submissions raise that this residency requirement is unfair, as there is no similar requirement for a party candidate, and nor are these requirements set out for any independent candidates contesting wards in the local government elections. Now, we note the department's response was that the bill actually indeed provides the same requirements for party candidates, and that the Municipal Electoral Act actually does require an independent candidate to be resident in the ward. We respectfully submit that this is not correct. Firstly, there is no residence requirement for a party candidate, as the wording in section 27(2)(ca) in relation to a party candidate is very different to the wording in relation to an independent candidate. The wording for the party candidate only requires the party candidate to be a registered voter in the region, whilst the wording in respect of independent candidates requires them to both be voters in the region as well as resident in the area that they want to contest. We also submit that there is no residency requirement for an independent candidate to contest a ward to be resident in that ward in the local government elections. The section that the department was referring to actually refers to the nominator of the independent candidate to be resident in the ward, but not the independent candidate himself or herself. On this issue, the IEC also made this point and suggested that an independent candidate who is a registered voter be entitled to contest the regional elections in all 9 provinces, but did highlight practical difficulties. And they also suggested an alternative, that if that's not practical, then both party candidates and IC candidates be subjected to the same requirements. In other words, that both of them need to be both registered in the area as well as resident in the area. And we submit that this issue will also require further deliberation in the Portfolio Committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Daksha, on the notes you have compiled for deliberations. And I think we've not acknowledged that the final presentation or consultation, as you have indicated, that you will await for Mr. Njikela. It will be important that we work on that presentation. Daksha, we may not determine the person who's on sick as when she or he will be coming back or will be recovering. So I'll suggest that we work out that a formal presentation. But I think I understand that the issues you're raising are also will be catered in that presentation for purpose of circulation. I will get a sense from the IEC if the issues they may want to comment. I know they may not have ran on them, that they have not received a proper response from legal, but because we'll be also interacting in the next space, it may be important to touch on a comment so that we don't waste more time for the committee to begin to deliberate on the issues. I'll come back to them. I'm just trying to formulate thinking, Commissioner Love and Commissioners and Mr. Shiburi, as to whether you'll be attempting to, because at least this response is on the basis of your comments you have made. Honorable members, I'm going to invite you to just comment on the issues which were raised. I know a process that are going to guide us once we've approved the MOD as to how we must formulate. Unless we will start with the IEC, I'm trying to solicit guidance, members, only on this process, so that we don't come back to the IEC or bring them later in the next session. I think these are the issues that they can quickly note or guide. Honorable Pili, I see your hand.
Good morning, Chair. Thank you very much, and good morning to everyone on the platform. Chair, I just wanted to, I wouldn't say guide, but perhaps just give an input in terms of process. I just think it might be a bit premature to have discussions if we've not had a proper input or presentation from legal. Because remember that anything we discuss, whether it's IEC, Home Affairs, Committee, or anyone for that matter, it's still going to come back to a legal opinion, because whatever we do must be within the legal framework so that we don't open the door for any challenges legally. So I think for me, I just wanted to propose, and I'm not sure how other members feel, that perhaps we wait for that process of where legal is able to give us that, and then we start deliberating. I know in terms of procedure, we're going to accept desirability, but then we're going to deliberate at the next meeting, which I think makes sense. But I'm just thinking that I want to hold discussions, because we might say things and then, it changes altogether. You might get IEC response and then that changes altogether in terms of legal. So I think the important thing is to take everything that we've got so far and then cross-reference it, if I'm making sense. Thank you.
Honorable, let me get members' views. Honorable Tito. Honorable Ross.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I think the inputs over the last few meetings have been tremendously helpful, and there have also been recommendations for quite substantial changes to this legislation. And our understanding is, even once those amendments are made, that they need to go back to the NA and be re-advertised for comment. And so it would be very helpful if we could get those proposed changes as the content advisor has proposed in item 6, that we can just ensure that when we are dealing with this, that the major changes that have been proposed and agreed by the committee are in that draft, and that we are then sure what version of this legislation we are talking against. Because the amendments, again, my understanding is that you have to approach the House for permission then to effect these amendments and then advertise them for comment as well. So that brings in that process again. And then we need to comment on those comments, unless I'm misunderstanding that process.
No. I fully understand what you're saying. We're raising Honorable Ross. I'm establishing whether on the line of that we have received presentations, there are issues that the legal have raised, noting that they've made a request that they will present outside a formal presentation consolidated but they've sought legal input as a result of the IEC comment and the DHA, and they will await Mr. Njikela. And what I'm saying that we may not wait for Mr. Njikela because we may not determine when he's going to recover. So what is the point on the table is that Daksha and the team must work on the presentation, solicit it so that it's circulated to us members of the committee and the IEC and the DHA. The point is that we may not delay for deliberations. Once we adopt the MOD in the next meeting to proceed with the deliberations, we'll then have to get into space with the issues. Some of the issues may not necessarily need the IEC to go back or the DHA to come back. It will now sit with the committee for deliberations. So I'm sorting a process. I think Mr. Honorable Pillay has proposed that it may not be quite, it may not be correct to comment, to ask IEC to comment on the notes that they presented by public parliamentary legal service because the report presentation may come back different issues that they may have commented on and were on and working on terms of process of parliament, which it may not be like that, but I'm soliciting views on how we must handle this point because the IEC is also in the meeting, whether we must allow it to comment or they can comment when we've adopted the MOD in our next meeting. But the point that we're raising, I fully understand and agree on the part, but that's not part which I'm requesting guidance on.
Thank you, Chair. No, in that case, I do agree with Honourable Pillay's suggestion. I think, it's been pointed out before, as much as there is a time pressure, we shouldn't rush these important processes. And so I do agree with that proposal, Chair.
Okay. Honourable Molekwa.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think I agree with Honourable Brandon Pillay on his comment. Thank you, Chair.
Honourable Tito, I beg.
Morning, Chair. Yes, Chair.
Okay.
Yes, Chair. Yes, I'm back. Yes, morning to my colleagues and everyone who is present. Yes, Chair, I'm also concurring with Honourable Pillay what you were saying earlier on. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Lekhase. Okay. Let me get the understanding. We're noting the submissions that the committee has made. Commissioner Love, is that our understanding, your understanding, so that we also get a confirmed response?
Chairperson, thanks very much. It certainly is our understanding. Just to indicate, though, that in Adam's presentation, there were some requests for examples of calculations and so on. And all that, once we have received such requests, we'll certainly forward that to the committee for its further deliberation. And with regard to proposals that we assist with any draft, of course, once the committee has deliberated to say which way it wants to go, for example, with regard to the replacement of candidates, we will, of course, stand ready to assist with the draft. The only other thing, Chairperson, that I had wanted to mention, and it arises partly from Adam's presentation and then partly from the verbal presentation from the legal advisor, is the fact that when one talks about an association of independents, there seems to be a conflation between in some of what was said, and not having the legal advisor's text in front of me, there seems to be a conflation between what is an independent, an association rather of independents versus independent candidates forming a political party. And of course, forming a political party, there's already provision for, but to have an association, I think, is something different. And so presumably then the committee would be able to guide us. But I think otherwise, Chair, we stand ready when you are ready.
Okay. No, thanks, Commissioner Love, for that comment. We did that exercise because the matter arising from their presentations of IEC in the main, and there are some of the issues that have sufficiently been responded by Home Affairs. Dr.
Yes, Chair.
Yes, is that our understanding that we must formulate the presentation and circulate it to IEC and the committee so that we're able to work on start on the process. What I think fully agree on the rules is that we must make sure that we exhaust all areas so that we are proceeding fairly on this subject, and rushing it does not assist any other stakeholder or our people on the ground. So we must able to sufficiently deal with some of these issues that are raised. So Doctor, I think you'll work on that on how we want to assist each other on your process.
Yes, sure, Chair. We'll get down on that.
Okay. Thanks, members. Let's note those two issues. We'll now go to the last item, which is Mr. Matonsi. MOD.
Yes, Chairperson, as you indicated, the committee needs to decide whether we need to proceed with it or not and adopt the motion of desirability. This is in terms of Rule 286, sub-4, Roman figure 1 and J, which reads as follows: after due deliberation must consider a motion of desirability on the subject matter of the bill, and if rejected, must immediately table the bill and its report on the bill. Then J says, if the motion of desirability is adopted, must proceed to deliberate on the details of the legislation. So in other words, we have advertised this bill, we have done public hearings, we have received submissions, we have done provisional public hearings, and then we have received a presentation from Parliament Legal Service, from the IEC, from the department. So the committee now is more clearer in terms of what the bill seeks to achieve. Therefore, the committee must decide before we deliberate on whether we are proceeding with the legislation or not. That's all, Chairperson, from my side.
Thank you, members. That is the rule in terms of how we must proceed with the deliberations. I'm going to invite members to comment on it, and then after that we'll request Mr. Matonsi to bring the motion of desirability in our next meeting for adoption. Can I recognize Honorable Pillay, Honorable Tito, Honorable Mulekwa, Honorable Kanyile, Honorable Ross, and Honorable Khwase. Honorable Pillay.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, if I heard at the next meeting, and Chair, if that's what it is, then I move for yes.
Honorable Pillay, you're cutting. Can you reconnect with your
statement? Can you hear me now, Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, Chair, I'm saying if I heard Eddie correctly, he said that in terms of the legislation, in terms of the act, it says that you adopt the motion of desirability, which means you then engage at the next meeting. So if that is the case, then Chair, I want to move for that adoption.
Okay. Honorable Tito? Honorable Kanyile, if you are in now. Honorable Mulegwa.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. We take note and welcome the report that is presented. Thank you.
Honorable Ruos.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I think this bill is before us to give effect to the Constitutional Court judgment on the New Nation Movement judgment. And so, yes, it's something that we need to proceed with in our point of view.
Thank you, Honorable Tito. Honorable Khwase. Okay. We seem to have a problem with the network of other colleagues. We are proceeding with the deliberations. Members are firmly agreeing that we must proceed to affirm to the directive the Constitutional Court has directed Parliament to correct in terms of the Electoral Act. So we'll request Mr. Matonsi and the content advisor to bring the motion of disability in our next scheduled meeting when this matter is going to be itemized so that we adopt. And then in the same session, we'll also receive a few comments from the team who have requested. And at that time, legal service will have send those responses to the members. It will be helpful that we get those responses also earlier. Dr. if you can assist, you send to IEC on some of the issues that we request so that we don't take time in terms of their responses and deliberation, but we must now spend more time, the committee deliberating once we've adopted the OMOD next week. Is that our understanding, Mr. Matonsi and content advisor?
Yes, Chairperson.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, Chairperson. Also, just to indicate that we're actually meeting on Friday, not next week, on the issue of the MOD and further deliberations. And also just to add that we also need to adopt the oversight report. It's a new requirement, but that report that we did on the oversight summarizing the submissions and the provincial oversight needs to also be adopted. So we'll resend that to members just so we can adopt that. It's a formal requirement, new formal requirement. Thank you.
Yeah. The one of the weak problems when you miss MENCO, you'll announce things that are not agreed in terms of the process. So you must stick to what you are requested to respond on. In future, I'm just assisting so that we don't communicate issues that the chair is not even aware and the committee. Mr. Matonsi, can you then announce our next meeting and the item we're going to deal on?
Okay, Chairperson, our next meeting is on Friday. Then the IEC will be briefing the committee on the 2021 local government election report. And also, Chairperson, I'm also suggesting if we can bring back the issue of the filling of vacancy for this coming Friday as well, the deliberation on the report and the CVs, if it's possible, Chairperson.
No, thanks. I think we agreed in our last meeting when this matter was tabled around the IEC commissioner candidate or candidates that members, the matter now has been referred, tabled before Parliament by to a speaker, and the speaker has referred it to the portfolio committee, and the committee received the report. And our resolve was that Let's spend time to deliberate on or to look on the CVs and look any other methods of process that they underwent interviews, and is sufficient so that we deal with this matter is out of the committee. And there were 2 requests from the last committee last year that will need an IEC local government election report. And it's important because we're going to a budget vote next week on Tuesday. So it'd be important that we deal with this a report of IEC that will be presented on this Friday. So these are the 2 items we'll be dealing with members. I hear there's a hand. Somebody wanted to talk. I don't know who's that. Okay. No, thanks, members. That I think is our process we're going to engage on, and will indicate our other issues that we'll be interacting with in our next meeting. Thanks very much, honorable members. Thanks, Team IEC, Commissioner, Deputy Commissioner Love, Commissioner Mebza, Commissioner Masuku, and Deputy CEO Shiburi, and the entire stakeholders that are part of assisting Parliament, or those that even made submissions to the committee, who are always attending or interacting with the issues that were raising in the meeting, and the responses from the DHA, Parliamentary Legal Service, and the IEC. Thanks very much. Our meeting stands adjourned.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Bonga.